You've heard of liquid confidence? It's like that, right? Yeah. You have the shield up and you're like, all right, there's a little bit of protection in this, 25 yards that we got to move from. It forces you to shed.
Hey everyone, welcome again to our podcast. This is episode 31 of Complacency Kills, and actually today we lucked out. We were actually doing a kind of impromptu shoot with Fort Mill Police Department, and they were gracious enough to come hang with us for the morning and afternoon. So we're getting together for episode 31 to talk about, the primary thing we're looking at is ballistic shields, but we're opening the door to, all law enforcement topics and kind of what these guys do on a day-to-day basis. So again, I'm Michael Witt, and we have Brandon Witt next to me. If you guys would like to just quickly go with the mic around the table and just do a quick intro of yourself for everybody.
I'm Billy Donahue. I'm a training sergeant at Fort Mill PD.
I'm Sean Serkey. I'm the patrol lieutenant at Fort Mill PD.
Nate Cundy, I'm a patrol sergeant at Fort Mill PD.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So, I just want to say, honestly, thank you for coming out. Like, having stuff like this is great, not only for us, but honestly, the other officers that are out there that hopefully are going to watch this content and hopefully get some benefit from it. So I want to say, thank you very much for that. Seriously, it's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So kind of want to kick off. Can you guys give me some of your background, like your law enforcement background, like how you even got into it, any prior military, like what's your guys' genesis story, if you guys don't mind going around and giving a quick intro to how you got into it and the why and all that fun stuff.
Football will always be there.
Right. Yeah. So Billy Donahue, been in law enforcement for almost 10 years. I came from a law enforcement family. My dad was a cop. My wife's father was a police officer. Always wanted to do law enforcement. Always wanted to get into it, and always knew I wanted to get in the tax side of law enforcement, because there's some situations where law enforcement can make a difference, and there's some situations where other resources have to make that difference. And I always wanted to be in the realm of the difference making in this certain incidents, critical incidents, certain situations. I grew up watching my dad. My dad is a Marine, and came out and got his way into law enforcement. Tactics have changed over my lifetime, but a lot of people don't know is that, I've been clearing houses since I was 11.
Yeah.
Like, we had mandatory shotgun training every Wednesday night when I was a kid.
With your dad?
With my dad. It was mandatory. Mandatory, bro.
Yeah.
So I grew up around firearms. I grew up around guns. I grew up around good country people from York, South Carolina, and good people. And, just wanted to find a way to insert myself in that. And plus, I grew up playing sports. I got a little chance to play a little college football. And when I got out and that was done, it was struggled a little bit trying to find an avenue to where I could still keep that level of mental toughness and that level of competition, keep growing, getting better and better. And so that drove me to law enforcement, following my dad. My mom was a reserve deputy for a little bit, so it's been all around me and all around my family. And I just chose a little different avenue to get there. And a lot of my buddies on the tech side of it are former military members. But it's just been a big part of my life. And I like training. I like seeing people grow. I like seeing officers grow. I like seeing the public grow. So it's really good. That's just how I got into it.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm Sean Serkey. My father, too, is former law enforcement.
Okay.
In Rochester, New York for 21 years. I was in mental health for 7 years prior to law enforcement, and I just wanted something a little bit more and give back where I could, use the resources and the knowledge that I gained from that to kind of just give back and help people.
Okay. And how long have you been in?
8 years.
8 years? Okay. Very cool.
That's it for me.
Yeah, so same boat as these guys. My dad was in law enforcement. He was an MP and then went to Immigration and Customs Enforcement when he got out. And I didn't really have my eyes set on law enforcement too much. I was going to join the Air Force when I got out of the military or out of high school, so I did that. Became a firefighter, actually. Did that for like 4 years, got out. And I started applying at places to be a firefighter, and like nobody would pick me up. And I was like, well, all these places are hiring police officers, so like let's see what that's like. So I went and did a ride along. Like my first ride along was just like awesome. They ended up doing like a felony traffic stop on like a drive-by shooting suspect. The passenger comes out of the car, he's like bleeding from his leg, and they're like, crawl to us, and he's like on the ground crawling to him, and I was like, in the front seat as a civilian, like, this is freaking awesome, dude. So, I was like, yeah, sign me up. This is cool. And, since then, been in law enforcement for 8 years. Was at Rock Hill for 5. Was on SWAT and street crimes there. Loved that. And now I'm at Fort Mill and love it there. Like Donahue, I found a huge passion for like training people. And like he said, seeing them grow and bringing, to me, what I really enjoy about our agency is like, we don't always teach like lowest common denominator. We try to take stuff like that we learned at the Contact Shield School in Lexington and stuff that we learned at some other trainings and be like, hey, y'all come up to us, like we're going to bring you up to speed. Not everybody can perform there, so we got to tailor it a little bit, but we're at least giving them the opportunity for that.
Yeah,
I don't think a lot of agencies do that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we see that pretty frequently when it comes to just agencies and budgets and where their priorities lie. But at the end of the day, yeah, it all comes back to training. Again, if you don't have the gear, I mean, you can have all the great gear, but if you don't know how to use it and implement it, like everyone knows, it doesn't really serve its purpose. But something that I'm curious about, and given the amount of time you guys have spent on law enforcement, what's been kind of your guys' opinion for better or worse? I've been curious about it, watching it, me not being in law enforcement, but prior military, is the transition from GWAT and a lot of the gear and tactics and stuff that have obviously morphed. Like, if you look back in the early 2000s at law enforcement agencies to now, it's obviously much more militaristic in terms of appearance, gear, tactics, stuff like that. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what your guys' opinions are in terms of, how you guys are able to perform, how it impacts your job, how it impacts the public. What are you guys' kind of thoughts on that?
All right. So I'm kind of torn on it, honestly. So, I grew up seeing the Class A uniform.
Right.
Shirt stays, core frams, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I love the Class A uniform, but in reality, for realistic application, the outer carrier or load-bearing vest, the molly belts or the safe light, or any type of those double-sided Velcro hook and loop inner double belts. Honestly, at the end of the day, you ride around in a car, get out, jump out with stuff, answer your call service, check property, whatever it may be, work collisions for the most of the traffic guys and everything. Like, you're going to feel it in your hips. Mm-hmm. So from the tact side of it, from the militaristic side of it, of seeing your officer go from Class A uniform style to this outer carrier, I get it. I understand the public's concern in that. But for performance, for breathability in terms of, honestly, and I don't just mean breathability, when you put that Class A vest on, and you cinch that inner vest down, there's some constriction there. Where the Class A, it's also a morale issue with that as well. You get a lot more airflow, but I get it. But in terms of performance, for the average officer who's physically capable, right, that's a big thing. The officer who's physically capable and can do his job effectively, I believe that the outer carrier load-bearing vest and the setup that we've moved to as law enforcement allows us to perform at a higher level. Now, that's a lot on the officer who's performing.
Sure.
That they need to do what they need to do off the clock. But I think it's a big advantage for, number one, allocation of tools and resources. Like, you run out of belt space in those Class A uniforms. Mm-hmm. Now we're carrying, when I first got in 15, which is not long ago, body cams weren't a thing. IFACs were not a thing. I didn't carry a tourniquet. I did in my car, but I didn't carry it on my person. Mm-hmm. 2 mags, flip top pouch, flashlight. I got a taser a year in, now, and then OC was on your belt, double cuffs in the back. You start feeling that in your back. And it's just, at the end of the day, it's gear assessment. It's a gear check. Yep. And I think as law enforcement, we evolved in our gear checks and our gear assessments to what fits our needs. And a lot of your older administration has a problem with that. A lot of them have come around. And again, I get it. Because the Class A is what drove that look. It used to be a standard saying, hey, when you got that car, your tone of how you look, crisp edges, crisp pleats, no Irish pennants, shirts tucked in, shoes polished. That's how you set the tone of, hey, this guy or gal knows what they're doing. They know what they're doing on the law enforcement side. They know what they need to do, and people buy into that. With this, it does tend to this uniform style that we have now can tend to get a shock and awe appearance. But at the end of the day, if you really understood the background it came from and utilization of the tools, right, a lot of accesses to more key. Like, we all run IFACs now. We all run tourniquets. There's more. Hip movement is key.
For sure. Yeah.
That for sprints, clearing houses. Bending over, assessing situations, arrest, triaging people in collisions. Like, it's you're more modular, you're more mobile, and you're more efficient. So
Yeah, 100%. And to kind of piggyback on that, I do think manufacturers now, especially over the last like 5 years, I would say, have I think started to blend a bit more of taking all of the best stuff from the militaristic GWAT style gear setup and also turning it into and still having more of that dress look appearance that officers are getting. And so I think that's coming more and more frequently for, especially for patrol, right? So I do think manufacturers are trending that direction, which is, I think good for both parties, right? But as an officer, I have to imagine, obviously, your number one priority is making sure you and your buddies go home, and having the right tools in place to do that obviously comes first and foremost, right? So
I still think there's a line, but I think we're navigating that line in some areas pretty well.
For sure.
So we just got to continue that.
Yeah, I feel like a big change that we've started to see probably in like the last 5 years is like, especially on a tactics side, is a lot less. We went out there and did that shoot earlier, and we're like, real world, yeah, we might have to make entry, but we're going to be breach and holding, throwing gas, all those other options that we have available to us. Now we have drones that we implement. So I feel like law enforcement as a whole has taken a really speed, surprise, violence of action was like the thing that was nailed into your head. Like when I came up on SWAT back in like 2017, and now it's like, okay, that's cool and sexy, and we definitely need there's a time to do that. But if we have the opportunity, the ability to do so, we need to take our time and do everything that we can to keep officers safe. So I feel like there's a big transition to officer safety, and then also like utilizing a lot more tools to accomplish the same mission.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
That's what I've noticed.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's a good point. Now some of your street crimes guys are running mini drones because you got a felony car stop. You fly a drone over there. You don't have to go up the car yet to see if anybody's in there waiting to do anything.
Right.
Hazardly,
exactly, for sure.
It's being smart. We're being smarter about the whole game. I think that stems, like Cundy was saying, evolution as a whole of law enforcement.
Yeah. So kind of going back on the gear side and tools that you guys use, obviously on the Ballistic shield side, when did you guys make the move to incorporate shields into your tactics? How long ago was that?
So let me jump over the train. For two worlds. On the SWAT side of things for that county jurisdiction, multi-district team I'm on. We've really picked up our shield implementation, but also our doctrines changed a little bit with first problem first. That doctrine is coming to play a lot now too. And that just goes into closed doors, open doors, third parties and everything. But for Fort Mill PD as a whole, we're still attempting to get street level shields because to me those are a necessity as well. DV hands, armed. These guys still got to go in there from the initial call of service. Hey, this suspect's armed, and you're trying to get the victim. You're still going to need that shield. So we made the switch about a year ago to really incorporate it for SSU when it was established to run a shield and prioritize a shield on most of our work, even car stops or felony car takedowns for for suspects that meet that threshold of above the average normal patrols to fall below the matrix of a SWAT call or anything like that. But no, shield tactics have probably the last, for me, 6 years been really starting to be incorporated, or 5 years been incorporated more and more. Because it used to be, like my dad used to tell me, they used to call it a stick. Mm-hmm. Like their stack was a stick, and where that shield went, you drove that shield. Well, now, like Cundy said earlier, we're out there, shield's just a tool.
Yeah.
Right? If this is a point of opposition where we have to take this first, plug and play with that shield in this way. You can swing it over here. You don't have to drive anything. It's literally an additional tool to buffer you, provide more cover, concealment, time, distance, shielding. That's the three main things you need to be successful. And the shield for Fort Mill is playing a big part and it's going to continue to play a big part. But it's definitely come to fruition a lot of the last 5 years for me personally.
Okay. Yeah, and actually I'm going to pull Joe Rogan here and just give a product drop on have you guys seen the Guardian shield? I can't remember if we had them at the Kentucky course, but the single hand for patrol officers it's called their Guardian shield, and it's about this big. But if that's something you guys are looking at, I would definitely take a look on the patrol side. Because at least my understanding is the big issue with patrol. A lot of it is capacity in the squad car. If they're a standard squad car, it's storage and size. But it's a pretty cool product. So another question that when you guys are evaluating a shield, how do you make the decision on what ballistic level you're going to go with and what considerations like weight, maneuverability, Like, where do you guys make that cutoff when you're making an assessment on, hey, am I going to go 3A? Am I going to go 3? Am I going to go 3 plus or 4? How do you guys make that kind of determination when you're out there kind of scouting around?
Yeah, I would just say it just comes down to like what we're going to use the shield for. You know, for our special services unit, we're like Donnie said, we're kind of in that in between where we're running, you know, high risk arrest warrant, but it's not meeting the threshold level for a SWAT team. But it's like, well, he, you know, has potential for violence, so we need that shield. So depending on what his history looks like, you know, we're going to go to higher protection level. But like for patrol, they just need something that's going to be mobile and quick and user friendly. You know, that's what they're going to be looking for. It would be nice for patrol to have lights and run shields and all that other stuff on their lights, but if they can't, you know, and they have to sacrifice it, at least they have something that's better than nothing.
Right.
That's my take on it.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, so for me, I think when determining shield usage, it's intel dependent. If you're going on the TAC side of it, or the tactical side of it, like for the SWAT deals and everything. But for me, it's if we're going patrol and going just it's going back to your data, your statistics that you're pulling out of the national standard. What caliber is being used mostly when we face opposition as law enforcement? What are we seeing? What trends are we seeing here? And what is the common denominator in those trends? So if we're seeing 9 mil and, you know, 40 cal 223, you know, you go 3As or, you know, it's for me at our capacity, it's what's the biggest common denominator we're seeing, and that's the shield we're going to use. Are you going to be prepared for everything? No, but to me, it's like putting a Band-Aid on. If you know this Band-Aid's going to cover this size of a wound every time, and you get a big gash on your leg, a Band-Aid's not going to cover that. Well, that's a tourniquet. You know, if that's even a good analogy.
No, it is, yeah.
You know, I think the 3A shield is what we're running now, and you know, it's the most common. It's the best protection for the most common calibers used against for law enforcement that has opposition in those areas.
Right.
That makes sense, and that's kind of how I look. And weight, you got, like Cundy said, you got to have something that's modular, user friendly. Like obviously for our patrol guys, those guardians, that's something that's ideal, right?
Right.
For any other type of environments that you may be in the law enforcement capacity, like I've ran a rifle, like a ballistic rated rifle shield, the heavy shields in a 3-story structure the whole time. You know, that if you ain't got a J hook or some kind of hook on your belt, that's gonna tear you up. You know, and then my job was to run that shield, and that shield, that was intel dependent, right? That was intel driven. That's why that shield was selected.
Right.
Do I run that shield often? No, I run my other shield.
Sure.
So I think it's intel. It's intel dependent. It's intel driven from the common denominator of law enforcement as a whole. What we get from our data, from our statistics, from ODMP, your Officer Demo page, and everything like that, and what common ballistics you're looking at for opposition. For sure. Okay.
So on the ballistic side, are you guys coming across any specialty rounds out there frequently, like 5.7 or anything like that, or you know, most of your, you know, engagements with the population when they are armed is, you know, your more traditional standard non-specialty
What
rounds?
does that guy have over there? Force Ridge in this AR.
Just had a wild barrel. Lost 5.56, 223. In terms of engagements, I think we just set an engagements opposition. In terms of that is like what we're pulling off people after those felony stops or dealing with those high risk arrest warrants. Seeing normal, I guess, everyday population, average Joe population firearms. You know, you'll still deal with your high point 40s, 45s. You'll deal with your Smith & Wesson 9 mils. And we're not seeing nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, very rarely do we come across like an SKS 7.62.
Right. Yeah.
Most of the time, it's usually your EDCs for these people or whatever they picked up, whether it was stolen or not, from the other individual, the good citizens EDC.
Right.
You know, because a lot of our B&E autos, they'll smash and grab trucks because they're looking for firearms. So these people who are, you know, got these firearms in their vehicles for protection, these vehicles for protection are pretty common with the trend of 9 mil, 40, 45, 223, maybe some 300 blackout.
Okay. Yep.
But usually in terms of crimes and what it's usually those are your main 3 or 4 right there.
Okay. So in terms of like real life application, you guys have been running it. Do you guys have any stories or scenarios that you've had to deploy the shield and made the call on scene? Because, again, not knowing your call out structure and how quickly you guys are, you know, responding to this, you know, let's say you're called out and you do have some sort of intel, you know, where's your decision point? Like if you don't have the shields with you, all right, we need to hold up, we need to wait till our shields get here and other assets? Like, what's the criteria you guys are looking for? If you don't have everything you'd have in a perfect world on scene, what criteria are you looking for to say, hey, we need to go now, or no, let's wait until all the proper gear gets here?
I think the one that Cundy hit on earlier too is we had a barricaded subject in a 12 by 12 shed, possibly armed as for a domestic, unaggravated in nature. So one of the big things that we did was that hurry up and wait. I hate to say it that way, but set your perimeter, get everybody out there for your call outs, start the whole thing from top to bottom, make sure everybody's notified, get everybody out there. We did pair up with.
Yeah, we pulled some county resources for some gas and everything like that.
No, but we did the drone. We sent the drone in. We used the gas, and then at that point, it was time to move up.
Yep.
So we made the decision to deploy the shield.
And that shield was great because we were working in a large backyard. So that shield was great because it provided like a little bit of cushion, a little like mental like you've heard of liquid confidence. It's like that, right? Yeah. You have the shield up and you're like, all right, there's a little bit of protection in this, 25 yards that we got to move from vehicles to the shed to deploy gas. So that was really nice.
Yeah.
Another thing was, remember, he was elevated.
Yeah, he was in an elevated position too. So which I don't know if we knew that at the time, but yeah, he was kind of like up in some rafters.
Oh, really?
I see him.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty much you're thinking in your head like 12 by 12 shed. It shouldn't be a very difficult situation, but you're accountable for the guys just in that 12 by 12 shed. So that means your work area is going to be very minimal.
Right.
You got vest on, now you got a shield, or you got guys throwing some, whether it's OC, CS, whatever it may be, or some 40 mic canisters in there. From the 40 mic, it's just literally your workspace, your work environment's limited. And, we're pushing our vision in this shed after we get the first female out and she's giving us the run around. He's in there. And then you look up and it's just like, it's Methville.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
So let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
So imagination is endless.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
On the contraptions that are built.
Yeah.
And shit.
So the contraptions, everything. So you got tarps pulled over, plywood, and you're pushing your vision, you're like, it might be in the stack of clothes over here, but again, it's only like 8 feet deep.
Right.
So if I go in here, I know I'm going to be exposed to the rear immediately from elevated position. So yeah, we definitely plug that with this determination right there. Plug the shield. If you plug it in right when you hit the door, right when you hit the threshold, after that threshold eval, plug in, you just flip it up because there's going to be if you know any type of sheds, initially from just ride through the Lowe's parking lot, you're going to see them. Some have those lofts where they stack Christmas tree boxes and stuff like that. So you can, from all the tiny homes on YouTube, you can make those into anything. Yeah. So yeah, that was in that particular situation, the elevated position, knowing he could have been up there when we didn't see him on the initial evaluation from the threshold, was like, we're just going to run a shield. Yeah. Why not?
For sure.
It doesn't take up that much room.
And so the gas didn't flush him out though?
No, he
was playing hard to get it?
Yeah, he actually
we dumped in there.
He dumped a good bit of CS in there, but how he wrapped the tarps. Oh man! And so when we actually pushed up, one of our buddies on the county team with us, who's on another crime suppression unit for the county, we were able to use which this was not a contraption that I knew of. I wasn't a firefighter, but a New York tool. Okay. Because one of the other guys that are out there with us was a former firefighter, and we were able to bust all that down and break it out. When we did, we just gassed a little more, and it was able to gain compliance from that. But yeah, usually when we're determining a shield on the SWAT side, it's usually right when you get there, you get the intel from the brief from the sergeant on scene, lieutenant on scene, and you make a determination there. Okay. You might make that determination based on you're going to make it circumstantial based on the environment at the time anyway. If he's armed, this is the threshold. Whoever's usually a shield guy or whichever team member has been tasked with shield in the past or has that training, hey, go ahead and get your shield and it's going to stay in your area. You might be holding the Delta side of the house as we gather containment because you're the first one on scene and you're plug and play immediately. But if that truck's there, if the equipment truck's there or the Bearcat's already there, the armored vehicle's there, you go ahead and grab the shield, keep it with you. And once we fill some perimeter guys in and get you out, because it might be a hasty plan thrown together that you might have come from different points depending on what it is. Because especially in our county, it's not always a city or in that environment. Can be real spread out. So I think your intel drives your shield use on that, but at the same time, it doesn't matter. In my opinion, just take it if you need it. You can always ditch it.
Okay.
So
all right. So I guess to kind of cap this off, the last thing I'd like to know is, moving forward in the future in law enforcement, where would you like to see it go in terms of areas of focus, whether it's equipment, training, if it is training, what kind of training, as you guys continue to try and grow, the law enforcement organization as a whole, what are your thoughts on priorities for planning in the future?
I think equipment, we're starting to really nail down. Technology is ever changing, so that's always going to change and grow. And brilliant minds come up with something new every day. People way more smarter than me. I just use the tools. But training, it's got to become realistic in application. Like for a long time, the felony stops are changing. Those guys over there at other companies. I don't know if I can talk about company names on this, but
sure.
So like Centrifuge Training brought up the pillars and working their vehicles, CQB. Those pillars are life saving. You don't want to have to work around a car, but you do.
Right.
Law enforcement does it every day, especially in these felony car stops where you're felony stopping a car because of some type of high and aggravated nature in terms of a violent felony, or there's potential opposition there. So it's evolving to theirs is data-driven trends. So what I mean by that, I want to see law enforcement keep growing, but using the data that we've collected, and that's why body cameras are such a tool. I know I said it out there. It's a tool. It's pulling information that we can change the way we do things, change the way we think, and see what makes it better, what makes it safer. Because it's not always about making us safer. What are we doing to make the community safer?
Sure.
Like how are we going to hold here, or does our data tell us if we push this and get this first room, in that situation, or X, Y, and Z? Like we always have to think about safety of the community.
Right.
And if we're doing old school tactics, that may not be what's best for the community. So I think moving in a data-driven approach and seeing the trends and really seeing where we need to grow, and as long as we keep not just says, hey, this is how we've always done it. We've always done it like this.
Right.
No, see, why are we doing it like this, and what needs to be changed?
Yeah.
So that's what I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just an increase in tools and better utilizing those tools. Like Taser just came out with the X10, right? Yeah, the 10s. That's a great less lethal option to have. I think, I look at like somewhere like Phoenix, where they have patrol guys running less lethal equipment and shields and stuff like that. That for me, honestly, is the future of patrol law enforcement. The days of like, hey, just hold this and wait for SWAT was like gone. I think I saw a video, maybe in Greensboro or something, where like patrol guys had to run a shield on patrol for a DV hand. They breached the door and suspects got a gun to the victim's head, and they had to make a decision right then and there. That's not like wait for SWAT. Oh
right.
Yeah, sorry guys, this guy's armed, he's upstairs.
Yeah,
so, like we're 40. Yeah, those games are over. So like, and then so the only way to like, realistically, not everybody on patrol is a special teams material.
Right.
That's just where we're at. So we got to give them better tools, less lethal options, shields, drones. I'm all about that stuff.
Yeah.
Using it, gas. Yeah.
It's not just making them safer; it's making them more effective.
Exactly.
We have to provide a more effective. We're a product in law enforcement. Law enforcement's a product. The community is who's we're providing that service to. We're a product for them. We have to be a more effective product. You're not going to use this lawnmower to cut the grass if the blades are dull.
Right.
You're going to either buy new blades or buy a new lawnmower if it's sputtering. We're a product, and if you don't keep going in the right direction, providing your frontline officers with better tools to make them more equipped to be a better product and better service for the community to handle the situations, then we're stalling in law enforcement.
Yeah.
And to get those products, you have to use the training. So training budgets and products go hand in hand, and that's, to me, that's the pinnacle where we need to be to keep climbing. Like
yeah, absolutely. Well said. Well said. Well, on that note, we'll wrap it up. Again, gents, I want to thank you guys for coming out and hanging out with us for the day. Means a lot, and I'm glad we were able to do it. So thank you. And
thanks for having us. We enjoyed it.
For sure.
Thanks, guys.
All right, boys. We'll catch you guys next time.